Well, it starts all over again. So we have protest that erupts after police shoot a black man in Minneapolis at a traffic stop. And so it's sad because we are going through right now one of many of the biggest trials that is happening in history with the George Floyd trial. And so this is a protest that happened very recent. And so this was Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis, which is ironic. It's the same state, city where George Floyd was murdered. So police fired tear gas and rubber bullets as angry protests had erupted in Minneapolis, a suburb, after a 20-year-old black man was shot dead during a traffic stop. And so the unrest in Brooklyn Center came hours before the trial of Derek Chauvin. So the former Minneapolis police officer who is now charged with or facing being charged with murder in the George Floyd trial. This was set to resume in the courtroom less than 10 miles away on Monday. So it is 10 miles and 16 kilometers. And so that's just sad. So outside of the Brooklyn Center Police Department on Sunday night, smoke had billowed as a line of police officers fired rubber bullets and chemical agents at protesters, some of whom lobbed rocks, bags of garbage, and water bottles at the police. So the Brooklyn Center's mayor ordered the curfew at 6 a.m. And the local school superintendent said the district would move to remote learning on Monday out of an abundance of caution because of the uprising that happened from this killing. So the man killed by the police was identified by relatives and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as Dante Wright, and he was 20 years old. So he was still young. Walz said in a statement that he was monitoring the unrest as our state mourns another life of a black man taken by law enforcement. So late Sunday, a group of about 100 to 200 protesters gathered around the Brooklyn Center Police headquarters and threw projectiles at the police department. Commissioner John Harrington and the Minnesota Department of Public Safety said in a live stream news briefing. So the group was later dispersed. Another pocket of protesters broke into 20 businesses, about 20 businesses in the regional shopping center, with some businesses that were looted, according to the police and local media reports. So anti-police protesters have already spent recent days rallying in Minnesota. I started to say Minnesota, Minneapolis, as the trial of Chauvin, a white former police officer, city police officer, who enters the third week of a courthouse ring with barriers and soldiers from the National Guard. So Chauvin is charged with murder and manslaughter for kneeling on the neck of George Floyd, that is, a 46-year-old black man who was handcuffed during a deadly arrest last May, video of which sparked a global protest against police brutality, which makes this whole thing ironic that this is happening right here in the same state. And so it's crazy. So Brooklyn's, it's almost like you want to say, have you been watching what's going on? Why would you do this? This is not cool at all. This is not good. And so it just only adds to the fuel in the fire that's already simmering. And so last May, the video of which it sparked this global protest all over everyone. How could you not see what's going on? So Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott said. So we want, and I'm saying, but we want to make sure that everyone is safe. So please be safe and please go home. As this is what they always say when there's an uprising and people have had it. And so he said in a tweet addressed to protesters, he was basically asking for them to calm and go home until they get to the bottom of what's going on, which we've seen these things happen over and over again, and it seems like it's happening more frequent. So, and I've always said that I felt that these are sanctioned killings. You know, sanctioned meaning they have a badge, they have a pull in the police department, they have some power behind them, and they can pretty much make things happen and get exonerated, and somehow they have a lot of support, and even if it's something like this, such as this. And so a lot of people have been crying out that a lot of this has been unjust. A lot of times people have been killed when they don't have any weapons. They could have something as simple as a cell phone. They may not have anything on them at all. They may not even be resisting arrest at all. And even if you were resisting arrest, if you don't have any weapons and you have all these police officers, why would you feel that you have the right to kill and murder all of these individuals simply because you need to call more backup to handcuff someone? It just doesn't make any sense. But sometimes it's over the smallest and littlest things, and people's lives are just taken for whatever. And a lot of that has been centered around racism, discriminatory police profiling. And so a lot of this is really come to a point where people are saying no more. And it's just really police brutality. And so it goes on in the article to say, while the incident's being investigated, we continue to ask that members of our community gather and do so peacefully amid a cause of transparency and accountability, he added later. So the reason why people are getting more and more angry, because the shootings and the killings haven't stopped. And it's the same story over and over again. It's police killing black people. And so we've heard these statements before and nothing has been done. And then you've heard many people in different places have the same incident happen, almost identical of one another, and it always ends up being some black person who's killed. And so it goes on to say that Wright's mother, Katie Wright, told the reporters at the scene that she had received a call from her son on Sunday afternoon telling her that the police had pulled him over for having an air freshener dangling in the rear view of his mirror, illegal in Minnesota. Oh my gosh. So I guess I was right about the Minnesota part. Because I thought I saw that in the article. Because at first I was like, I thought I was gonna say Minnesota, so I didn't know that. I'm just learning that. I'm like, I'm gawking at like, what? It's illegal to have an air freshener dangling in your. Okay, let's go on. Let me read this because I'm learning something about this. This is I never knew this. Do you know how many people here in California do that? Jeez. So she could hear police tell her son to get out of the vehicle, she said, and I heard scuffling. And I heard the police officer say, Dante, don't run. So he probably got scared and he ran. And what happens when you run? They don't try to chase after you because that's too much. No, they take a gun and shoot you in the back. So I haven't read the rest of this, but she says through tears, the call had ended. And when she dialed the number again, his girlfriend answered and said that he was dead in the driver's seat. So sounds like there's more behind this. I don't know if there's a video or if they have body cam. But in the statement, Brooklyn Center Police said that officers pulled over a man for a traffic violation just before 2 p.m. and found that he had an outstanding arrest warrant. And so, as police tried to arrest him, he got back in the car. And so the officer shot the man who was not identified in the statement. So the man drove several blocks before striking another vehicle and dying at the scene. And so police say that both officers' body cameras were recording during the incident. And so the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension said it was investigating this shooting. So Minnesota branch of the American Civil Liberties Union said another independent agency should investigate and demanded the immediate release of any videos of this shooting that took place. So the group said that it had deep concerns that the police here appear to have used dangling air freshener as an excuse for making a pretextual stop, something police do all too often to target black people. Wow, that is crazy. Air freshener dangling from your car rearview mirror? Man, I didn't know it was crazy like that. I already knew that, you can get pulled over just by being, but just the air freshener? Come on now. That's just, let me finish it. So, police fired rubber bullets, hitting at least two in the crowd. These are the protesters. So, this is what happened. Near the site of the shooting, protesters yelled angrily at the line of police in a riot gear holding long batons. So some of these protesters vandalized two police vehicles, pelting them with stones and jumping on them. So police fired bullets, hitting. No wonder these people are mad. You're pulling people over that are black because they have dangling air freshener in the rearview mirror? Man, this is not sounding good at all. It's getting worse as it goes along. This is crazy, but says the police they fired these rubber bullets, hitting at least two in the crowd and leaving at least one man bleeding from the head. So the Reuters witness said that before the crowds marched to the police department building, reporting Nicholas Fossey Fossey in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, Tim Reed in Washington, and so these are all the names. Akariti Bala and Bangalore. Additional reporting by Jonathan Allen in Minneapolis. Editing by Peter Cooney and Clarence Fernandez, Michael Perry, and Gales Elgood. And so these are people. So the person that wrote this article um, is Nicholas Fossey and Jonathan Allen. So this is who this was by. And so it's just crazy. There's so much that's unrelated to this article, but there's a lot going on. There's lately, there has been so much going on with this trial. And as speaking on the George Floyd trial, it just seems really crazy because what it's looking like is they're trying, the defense lawyers in Chauvin's defense for Derek Chauvin, the police officer who was involved in kneeling on the neck of George Floyd. If the way they're going about this trial, they're trying to find anyone who will doubt, any single doubt that can pretty much get him exonerated or maybe have the charges dropped to some degree. And I feel like they go through this song and dance, and they're kind of finagling things. And what I mean by that, they just go through the song and dance of the habeas corpus. They try to give you your day in court, basically, and they go through the song and dance, and they do it because they want to look like we legitimately went to court, we made the decision, we went through the weeks of deliberation, and we came down to a decision. If you don't like it, it's too bad. I feel like when they start barricading the courthouse the way they did, it's funny that they did a really good job of barricading that courthouse when they didn't do a good job of barricading the Capitol building when they had the insurrection January the 6th with those little flimsy bike rails that they could just push those out of the way, and it was like scores and scores of people that were out there by the thousands, and they were just like flipping those things over and pushing their way in, and people were killed. And here you got this court trial, and they know what's going on. I almost feel like they are trying to find every little reason to get him to just have the charges dropped to get him off, and be able to back it up to say, well, we went to court, we did everything the legal way, it's over, it's a done deal, and that's the way, people who think like that basically will say. And they're probably gonna conceal where he lives. They're gonna send him somewhere or have him, quietly live somewhere, um, where he can't be bothered, because people are going to be angry if he is able to walk from this whole incident. I feel like that's where they're really edging. They're trying to lead there. And that's just going to ignite things, especially with what just happened right now with this protest erupting. This protest is erupting because people see that trial and they know that it could end bad. I feel like when you see those barricades come up, the way they're so intricately built, they're actually a lot more sturdier. It's a lot more stable. I even think they put concrete barriers before the fencing, and they made it so good that you really can't really break through there. They should have done that for the Capitol building, but they didn't. Um, it's almost like somebody on the inside wanted those people to get in there like they did. But this right here is this very sad. It just adds more fuel to the fire. It doesn't make things any better. It feels like these things are happening so close together as well, and it always seems like the same story, just different names and different people, but the same identical situation, and it always happens to be some black person getting killed for something that's not even worth being even pulled over by a cop for. It's ridiculous. But having said that, I'm gonna let this video go. It just never ends, and I'm afraid that if it doesn't end, you're going to see more of these protests like that. And the more you see these protests, the more violent these protesters are going to be. Thanks for listening.